Elon Musk, the CEO of SpaceX, revealed on Friday, December 3, 2021, that the construction has begun of a launch pad in Florida for its Starship rockets, as the company seeks to expand its launch locations for the huge rocket now in development. In a tweet, tech mogul Elon Musk said construction of Starship orbital launch pad at the Cape has begun. And FYI, SpaceX has previously begun work on a Starship-specific launch pad on the grounds of NASA's Kennedy Space Center's Launch Complex 39A, which the company rents from the agency to launch its Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy rockets. However, since the Starship pad's foundation was poured with concrete in late 2019, the site has largely stayed idle. NASA confirmed that SpaceX is within the rights of their lease agreement to make launch infrastructure improvements within the boundaries of the pad, and that the agency is not providing funding for the Starship launch pad and that the project's scope, cost, and timeline are being deferred to SpaceX. And as we are well aware, SpaceX is working on a gigantic next-generation rocket called Starship that will be used to launch freight and people on missions to the Moon and Mars. Hello and welcome back to another epic episode from our channel. For today's video, we will be taking a peek as Musk reveals that SpaceX is rebuilding Starship Launch Pad. SpaceX is investing privately in the development of orbital launch vehicles that can be reused multiple times, similar to how airplanes can be reused. Over the course of several years, SpaceX has been developing technology to enable full and quick reusability of space launch vehicles. Long-term goals for the project include returning a launch vehicle's first stage to the launch pad in minutes and returning a second stage to the launch pad in up to 24 hours after orbital realignment with the launch site and atmospheric re-entry. You see, SpaceX's long-term ambition is to have both stages of their orbital launch vehicle designed to be reused after a few hours. And in case you missed it, in 2019, the space agency completed an environmental review of the design and granted SpaceX authorization to commence construction on the LC-39A site, or the Launch Complex 39, which is a rocket launch site at the John F. Kennedy Space Center on Merritt Island in Florida, United States. Truly, there is no spot on the planet more deserving of a Starship launch pad than 39A. Ground systems and towers will be identical to Starbase, but will surely be enhanced. And in addition, here's what just happened. The government stated that at this time, approval is only for building, and that authorization for launches and landings would require a separate approval process. SpaceX started developing rocket prototypes at the NASA complex and at its private facility in Boca Chica, Texas, 2 years ago, when the firm began serious Starship development. Later on, the corporation shifted its focus to the Boca Chica site, dubbed as the Starbase, where it has undertaken Starship test flights and other activities. There is simply no doubt that Starship manufacturing and testing operations are currently centered at Starbase, SpaceX's facility in South Texas near the Gulf Coast village of Boca Chica. The site has hosted test flights of multiple prototype vehicles over the past few years. In November last year, Musk stated that SpaceX will ideally launch the first Starship prototype into orbit from Texas in January or February of this year, which is the next key step in the rocket's development. The test is subject to regulatory approval since SpaceX needs a launch license from the Federal Aviation Administration for the mission, which the regulatory agency expects to finish by the end of the year. And well, since you've also read our Tony Stark's tweet, perhaps it's safe to say that Musk's tweet signaled a resumption of work on the enormous rocket's launch pad in Florida, as he pushes SpaceX to conduct as many as a dozen Starship test flights this year. Oh, by the way, make sure you stay with us until the end of this video to have the full details. And don't forget to hit subscribe and the like button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out on the latest SpaceX news. Alright, going back to the topic. Well, you might be wondering, why is SpaceX continuing to build another Starship orbital launch pad at Kennedy Space Center near Cape Canaveral? It's because SpaceX is working on a spacecraft called Starship that will transport people and freight to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Starship isn't only designed to take up to 100 passengers to faraway destinations in the outer reaches of our solar system. SpaceX is hoping to turn the rocket into a near-space transportation network that can get you from one side of the Earth to the other in a matter of roughly an hour. Would you enjoy this commercial trip to Mars? Comment down below what you think. The vehicle is made up of 2 totally reusable stages. a Super Heavy first stage rocket, and a Starship upper stage spaceship. A fully stacked Starship is 395 feet or 120 meters tall, which is roughly 30 feet or 9 meters taller than NASA's famed Saturn V moon rocket. In the fall of 2019, SpaceX began some preliminary Starship-related work at Pad 39A, but it was shortly suspended as operations at Starbase sped up. SpaceX also plans to transform parts of NASA's Kennedy Space Center to become an operational base for the company's super powerful Starship launcher, while keeping a sprawling complex in South Texas as a research and development location for the heavy lift rocket program. Musk's team would have teams producing Starships in 2 locations under such a scheme. SpaceX is planning to build a rocket production plant inside the Kennedy Space Center gates after quickly increasing its industrial footprint in Texas over the last few years. Before SpaceX leased the complex, it was used to launch Saturn V rockets for Apollo missions as well as space shuttle flights. And according to Tom Engler, Director of Planning and Development at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, he thinks the SpaceX proposal is very interesting. While at Cape Canaveral, SpaceX currently has 2 launch pads for its Falcon rockets. Believe it or not, but SpaceX launches astronaut crews to the International Space Station and Falcon Heavy rockets, which are made by combining 3 Falcon rocket cores to generate a staggering 5.1 million pounds of thrust. Wow, that is more than any other operational launcher in the world. Standing in front of a towering fully stacked Starship rocket, the largest launch vehicle and most powerful ever built, tech titan Musk himself gave an update on the massive Starship rocket program on Thursday. The privately funded rocket made of shiny stainless steel will be the most powerful to ever fly. Future versions of the Super Heavy will have 33 methane-fueled Raptor engines, producing some 17 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. It's also designed to be fully reusable, with a Super Heavy booster and Starship essentially part upper stage and part in-space transporter, capable of returning to Earth with a vertical landing back on its launch pad, and then flying again. SpaceX hasn't said whether the rocket used as a backdrop, which was supposed to launch on the first Starship orbital launch attempt, could still fly. The firm hopes to convert them into 2 floating launch pads for its Mars-bound Starship spacecraft, which is presently in the final stages of development. According to a recent tweet from SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, one of the platforms might be in limited operation by the end of the year, but it appears to be a pricey undertaking. Musk even added, "I hope we don't go bankrupt building them." It would also be less disruptive in terms of noise if the launch pads were floating in the ocean far away from population centers. And we all know Musk is no stranger to making promises he can't keep and deadlines he can't meet. However, if recent progress in his space business's Starship development is any indication, we should anticipate the company to have something to show before the end of the year. We're all excited to witness this historic takeoff, so stay tuned to the latest news so you don't get left behind as we fly high through the skies with SpaceX's Starship. Thanks for watching and see you again for another epic episode. Bye!